Yeah, it's looking great.
Hello? Let's see, are we live? Oh, there's some people on here. Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
All these people already. Scott, hello Scott.
Hi,
Eric,
Scott.
Joseph, Margot, Francoise, Sylvia, Susan, MK from Brooklyn, Margit from Germany, Fatima, hello, Cindy McBride. I was just at lunch with Cindy. Yay! My
Must be
friends,
late night in Germany as well.
yeah, Deborah, Beth Brown Renzo. Hello,
Hi.
Beth. And Tremeliers. Okay, this is my friend Kurt. Oops, that way.
Hi.
That way. Yeah, that's Kurt. And Kurt Payne, and he is from New Zealand. And we were talking the other day. I was trying to figure out what I should call him. And because he's a knitter, but he's also a spinner, a weaver. He does machine knitting, sock machine knitting. He writes articles about fiber. And I think that we decided that he's a textile artist, not just a fiber artist, but a textile artist. And he really enjoys learning. He collects the skills. He's a skill collector, a fiber art skill collector. So I'm going to interview him today. I met him via my group on Facebook and became very interested because he always has such intriguing things that he shares, and he seems to have a keen interest in learning the same types of things that I like to learn. So, Sue Mills says hi from Auckland. You know
Hi,
Sue,
Sue.
right? Yes. Okay. Pam Anderson, Nina, Vincencia Dennis from Sydney, Ronna Shane, um, Anne Tremeliers from France. Okay, so Kurt, what originally attracted you to the types of skills that you're collecting, the fiber art skills? What were you first attracted to? How old were you? And how did that progress?
Well, so I'm 36 years old, and I first started picking up knitting needles and knitting when I was 4 or 5 years old. So that's a long time, long part of my life. But it was actually neighbours down the street that taught me how to knit, and they taught me in the continental method. And all my family, like my mother, all my aunts, and all my cousins and stuff, all knit English or American throwing
Oh,
style. So
so
it's
you were
one
the
of the
oddball.
really interesting things, especially in New Zealand where everyone does, they're all throwers, or they hold it like a pencil and throw as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting. So I would always be knitting maybe one, maybe two projects a year ever since then. I think it was 1989. There was a sweater in a magazine with Kylie Mole, who's a comedian. It was her face, and she was chewing gum. And my dad wouldn't let me knit that sweater, so I have the pattern now. But when you're 6 years old, that's pretty ambitious. It was, I think, 2004 when I first got my first knitting machine, and I'd still be doing a bit of hand knitting as well. So that's the oldest sample I could find. Back when mohair was really cool the second time round, it's in its third innings. So this is just a plain rib, 1x1 rib, mohair, really tassely, way too warm for 75-degree weather. Has a nice snake skin kind of design.
Wow.
Color pooling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. So yeah, started machine knitting then. So I've been machine knitting for 16 years now. And then it was 2011 that I decided to start studying at the New Zealand Institute of Fashion Technology. So I spent 2 years studying there to become a professional in the apparel industry. apparel and textiles. So, that's why I often call myself a professional in the apparel industry. And so 2 years there studying pattern making and garment construction. And so the summer before starting that course, I knew we had to do a little bit of knitting. So I was like, I should really brush up on my skills. And so I went to the library and I got this book, Men's Knits by Erica Knight. And I picked up to make this hat here, which I made just to practice my knitting. And then I'll show you what we made at the school. We made little teddy bears.
Oh,
and because I was like a good knitter, so I made a little baby naughty bear that his parents hanging around.
that's so cute.
And then at the same time I started knitting socks. So this is my first pair of socks, 2 at a time from the toe up, just in double knit, and they're really warm, perfect for Chicago weather. And that's the lifestyle toe up sock pattern if you want to make your own socks. Anyway, back to this book. On the cover is this amazing chunky scarf, and it was really huge. But to make that scarf would have been about $180 worth of yarn, which as a fashion student, you can't afford that. So I went to Ashford's and bought $9 spindle and went online to our equivalent of eBay and purchased a $20 fleece, which was 3 kilos, or what's that, about 6 pounds of fleece, beautiful brown fleece, and just started spinning my own yarn to make my own garments. And then about 2 years later, I think, I purchased a spinning wheel, an old Ashford traditional, for $30. And we have a national Spinners, Weavers, Woolcraft Society. It covers the whole country. We're really lucky to have that. And they have a correspondence course in hand spinning, which I completed and passed with distinction, which was fantastic. And that really took me up to being able to teach spinning at that level. And so I've taught a lot of spinners at that time. Also at the same time, I started making tea cozies for myself, because I love tea, and for exhibitions. So I have, most of them have gone, but this is one of the very first samples, which is more pom-pom than tea cozy, really.
That is so cute.
Yeah, I was eating breakfast one day and I was like, it needs a pom-pom, and then I just grabbed all this yarn and made it up. But then I was really interested in seamless knitting, because I didn't like seaming that much at that time, and tea cozies really need to be double layer. So this is a little sample I made, and it's completely seamless in the round. So that's the lining, your little spout and handle holes. So that kind of thing I'd make. And I also did some short courses at a local university and developed to make that kind of lined tea cozy on the machine. So you just design it on the computer, push click, and it will knit it on a Japanese modern knitting machine, which is really cool. A lot of my samples, a lot of people make sample hats. I'll just make a sample tea cozy. So that's I don't know if you can see the yarn very well. It's a very tweedy kind of yarn, same brown fleece. So this is a machine knit tea cozy. So it actually has seams. You might be able to see them here. This is Jameson's and Smith's
Wow.
2-ply. And I had a little hem fetish at the same time, so.
That is beautiful.
Thank you. And then there's trying out yarns ready for level 3 when you make your Fair project in Masters Knitting. So I made, this is the JC Rennie's yarn from Wee County. So I actually designed this for teaching a Fair class, as well as, trying out techniques.
Is that the lamb's wool?
This is a mixture of the lamb's wool and the Shetland and what's the other one they do? Shetland, super soft lamb's wool, and lamb's wool cashmere. There'll be a little bit of cashmere in here, so extra special.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second.
Do it.
Margot has a question. She said, did you knit your vest by hand or by machine?
So this is a hand knit vest. It's Ashford Tekapo yarn, which is like one of my workhorse yarns. I use both the 8-ply and the 3-ply. I buy the 3-ply on white cones and just dye it whatever colors I want. But in 2016, I had my first trip to the USA and met up with Kyle Kaneki, his design brand is Carl William. And he's actually at Vogue Knitting in New York at the moment teaching. Anyway, he teaches a steeking class, and I was teasing him because he doesn't have any patterns that involve any steeks. So I helped him develop this vest pattern, which hasn't actually been published yet, but we could he designed the motif. I'll stand up so you can see it a bit better.
That's striking.
So he designed the motif, so it's a repeat here, and then occasionally one of the, like here, the design changes slightly, so you get the pop of color, and then your round one, the very first round, is just repeated on the back, so you get this.
Wow, I love it.
So it's a nice plaid kind of design on the back.
Mm-hmm.
So you just knit round and round in circles, and then you have your underarm shaping here, and you can probably see me sweating. And then you just have a steek here. Once you finish your underarm shaping, you start your neck shaping. There's a bit of shoulder shaping in the back. But this has the, I've forgotten who wrote the book, Norwegian, I'll put a link to it, but there's a Norwegian knitting book, and it has a 2-needle shoulder bind off where you turn your work inside out and you purl 2 together on each side, across, and it gives you this shoulder join that's very flat underneath, and it gives you a single row of color there.
Wow, very cool. So Kyle designed that?
Kyle designed the motif, and I've designed the
vest.
The vest, and we just haven't graded it to sell on.
Did you do any shoulder shaping on that, or is it straight across?
There's you can see a little bit of shoulder shaping there.
Okay, yeah. Looks nice, very nice.
Yeah.
So keep going.
So yeah, we could
keep going with your story.
We could publish just the motif, and you could use it on anything, and that could be really easy. Or I could grade the pattern, and we could, make that available if people are interested.
I like it. It's very, very nice. And it fits you nicely too.
When you get paid as a professional on, fitting garments for commercial companies, if something doesn't fit, there's a problem.
Exactly.
But you'll be surprised at what gets let through the system, though.
Yes, or find a model to fit the project rather than the project fit the model, right? Or pin it in the back, pull it together, all those sorts of things. So continue on with your story of your history.
So that's kind of my development history. Then in 2017, Beth Brown Reinsell came to New Zealand, and I went to a festival, and I did 4 of her classes, which was fantastic. And I met a good friend of mine, Karen Severn. I met her for the first time there, and she is based in Sydney. And she encouraged me to go to the Australian Sheep. I'm just going to take this off because it's
summertime there.
It's summer, yeah.
Yes.
Australian Sheep and Wool Show, which is in Melbourne every July, and they have a large exhibition and competition. So I started entering work in the exhibitions, the runway show, and the essentially competition there. So I can show some of those samples.
Yes, 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 yes. Is that the show where they have all of the varieties of sheep as well?
Yes, they have sheep on show because there'll be people coming from all over the world to buy the genetics of these sheep. And they have, you can eat lamb. They have dog trials. They have woolcraft. Like, it's a massive show. I go there for 3 days and spend the whole time.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be so fun.
So the scarf that I mentioned before, I made the yarn with some hand-spun Gotland. I get a lot of my dye inspiration from Middle Eastern textiles or tiles, mosaic tiling. So this is that massive scarf.
Wow. That's perfect. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, too hot for New Zealand, but
right.
Perfect for Chicago.
That's gorgeous.
The 16-foot snowdrift.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Wow.
So yeah, that was fun to make. I think the year before Beth came, we had another festival in Auckland, and Beverly Francis, who did a lot of the knitwear for, I can't remember if it was Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit films, so she taught a class there on reversible knitting, reversible cables. So I'll actually stand up so you can see the sample better. Oops. So this is hand spun, that same brown fleece I originally had, but it's blended with some grey alpaca and little pops of tweed colour. So this is, this is the essentially the front of the design. So you can see the cables going there and these pillars of cables at the side. Then if I turn it over, you have the same pillars of cables coming up the side and a slightly different motif on the back. So
oh, interesting. Very nice.
And because it's for exhibition, it's actually a provisional cast on, and then you bind off, do a slip stitch, salvage all the way around, and so you have this chain that goes all the way around the whole edge, so you can't tell the beginning from the end unless you're a master hand knitter.
Wow, yeah, nice.
But yeah, I had knit this, I think, down to about here, and didn't like a part of the repeat, and so I dropped stitches all the way down and re-knit them up. So
wow.
Rather than re-knitting a whole panel.
Yes. I like doing stuff like that. Makes you feel like a super being, a superhero.
It feels good when it works. So in 2016, when I met Kyle, he was just about to launch his book, Urban Knit Collection.
Mm-hmm.
And the first project that I saw here is in Rowan felted tweed. And so I got a little length of the Rowan felted tweed and then came back to New Zealand and bought some Ashford merino alpaca fiber and then spun my own yarn. And then I'll just pop this sweater on.
So you spun it and knitted it.
Yeah, hand spun.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, this is super warm and really light as well.
That is just beautiful.
Yeah. And I love the garter rib that's all over.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm trying to get Kyle to design a garter rib all over sweater just for guys. You know how guys just want a plain,
right?
Plain sweater. Yeah, and that's done in the Armenian knitting, which is where you're locking your floats every second stitch. And so the back That's the inside.
Looks nice.
Yeah, I'll zoom it up.
Very, very nice.
But it also puts the Armenian knitting, which Meg Swanson, has popularized. It also gives you a texture and ridges, so very different, and different elasticity, and you get quite square gauges.
Right.
So you have to be careful with that.
Yes, you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
For example, on the back, you're just using one color, right?
Yes.
Was that knit in the round, or was it knit in pieces?
In pieces and seams.
Okay, yeah. Right. So you could match the front to the back. But if you were knitting it in the round, it would be quite difficult because you have a completely different row gauge on the front than you do on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Potential disaster.
Yes.
Oops. As I nearly dropped 4 tea cozies. And then, I can't remember what year it was. I went to Scotland because Kyle was teaching there, and I have family there. Mm-hmm. And I ended up demonstrating some 2-at-a-time sock techniques while I was over there. And one of the crazy things I did was on the little, the Chiao-Gu circular needles. So I was knitting 2 at a time, double knitting socks on those, but one sock was toe up, one sock was top down, and you pull the different sock. Yeah, crazy. Don't do it.
Oh my goodness.
The kind of mad thing I would do. But Crystal Seyfarth, who runs that festival, she was there. Just find a picture. This is her book. And these are the kind of beautiful shawls that she...
Oh, yes. Those are gorgeous. Amazing.
Yeah. So for the Australian Sheep and Wool Show...
Who's the author on? Can you hold the book up so we can see the whole front of it? And the Crystal Seyfarth. Thank you. That's nice. Nice.
So the Australian Sheep and Wool Show, they have a theme every year and they have a breed of choice. And so after my first show, I thought, oh yeah, so next year I'll see what the breed is and I'll make a drop shoulder sweater like you're doing with your iTag tutorial. And I'll have an Armenian knitting the sheep breed on the front and its bum on the back. And on the sleeves, I would put bale markings or, stuff from the farm or whatever. And then, and I'd give it to one of the, sheep prize winners or something, It's not really about me wearing something. But then after going to Scotland and seeing Crystal's shawls, I was like, why don't I knit one of those? And then Kate Sherritt from Ashford, she has... she had a flock of sheep, so she gave me a whole lot of brown merino, and I got some white merino and grey merino and started working on this design. But I don't actually like merino, so instead of the sheep, I ended up designing a skull, because I really like skulls as a fashion motif, so it was a sheep skull. And then I designed a white poppy motif to go on the background, because the theme was home front, which is a very war theme. I'm a bit more peace focused, so working on that. And then I had other border designs and stuff. But I'll show you the finished piece. So it's knit in the round.
And it is merino, even though you don't like merino.
100% superfine merino.
Oh my gosh! That is, that belongs in a museum.
Yeah, I was thinking of seeing if the Wool Museum in Australia wants it, actually.
That is fantastic. Let's see the other side.
Yeah.
Let's see the inside.
So yeah, this is what the Armenian knitting looks like inside.
Yes, that's just beautiful. Wow. And you spun that.
Yeah, all hand spun. Yeah, and it has,
Now, why? What is it that you don't like about merino, and what do you like better than merino?
Cool. I'll just show you the border as well. So there's so you knit up a border and then it's encased.
Right.
Because this is knit as a tube. You knit like this funnel shape and then you cut a steek and lay it flat.
Right.
So you don't get to see the whole thing. And also because I'm a guy, I blended some grey merino and with the white, so that when I'm knitting, I can get it dirty and eat stuff, and then you don't notice.
So I want to ask you again, though. You said that merino was not your favorite wool. You're not your favorite fiber. What is your favorite fiber?
I'll talk about the merino. So doing the spinning course, it was a really bad year for merino. Like there was either a food or drought or something. And so the quality wasn't amazing of the fiber we got, and it had quite a tarry coat as well. So it was awful, absolutely awful to prepare. I have, where did I put the sample? Anyway, so instead of spinning 50 grams of superfine merino, I only managed to spin 19 grams. That was really awful.
It was because it was a bad fleece, though. That was just a bad fleece, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the, are you still good? I've just broken up a little bit. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
So commercially, I would be working on about 100 to 200,000 merino garments a year, traveling to China to look at spinning and production, and you know, it's all superwash, it pills, and you just get absolutely bored of merino. In spinning, everyone spins merino because, you know, you can over twist it and you still get yarn that's kind of okay because it feels soft anyway, but it pills really quickly, and so those are the main reasons that I don't like merino. I do have, I can't remember where I put the sample. There's one merino yarn that I actually really love, and because they've just gone straight from the farm, no superwash process, straight to the spinner, and it's like fantastic, super soft, and perfect for something for a baby, but for me, I would just wear it out. So I like merino that's been blended, like been bred with a long wool, so the Polworth, or we have half bred in New Zealand, or I really love lamb's wool. Anything made from lamb's wool is just fantastic. So
do you have, like, is it Rambouillet? Do you get those there, or
Romney?
Yeah.
Corridale is one of my absolute favourites. So a lot of my spinning is done with Corridale at the moment. Spinning and knitting. We
have fleece judging at our local fairs in California, and the sheep growers grow the fleece specifically for spinning, and so those sheep are covered all year and kept clean, and then there's no treatment to the fiber at all. You get the fleece right off the animal, you know, and then you get it scoured yourself and, you know, prepared for spinning.
That would be fantastic.
Yes. They don't do that there? You would think they would.
Yeah, there's not much covering here. We're very humid environment.
It's more commercial. It's more commercial.
In Australia, they will cover for handcrafting.
So let's see now. Sock knitting machine.
Yeah.
One of the ladies asked in my Ravelry group, what is the difference between an antique machine and a new machine, and which do you prefer?
Yeah, so I have a vintage, it isn't old enough to be antique, so vintage Canadian Laguerre 47 sock machine. My samples are handy, that's good. So I first heard about sock machines in 2015 and have wanted one kind of ever since. And you're looking at the cheapest I've ever seen is an older machine in the States is about $900, and in New Zealand dollars, for something brand new, you're looking at about 5,000 New Zealand dollars, either to ship from the States here, or we actually have some manufactured in New Zealand. So I had, a budget, and then I was also at the same time knitting a whole lot of socks by hand to see. And my favorite socks, I have them. These are my favorites. They're opal yarn. Hem at the top, just knit on the little circular needles. And there are no purl socks, so it has a garter stitch heel, and yeah, so you don't have to purl throughout the whole thing. So really good for traveling because you can just keep knitting. And I'll be knitting with the ball of yarn inside like this, and you're knitting at the other end, and so it just, works out perfectly. So while I was waiting, for a machine to come around, I would try knitting socks on the flatbed machine. So this is a sample here.
Oh.
So you can knit something like this in maybe 15 minutes on the flatbed machine. And this actually has, the equivalent is kind of a yarn over after the salvage stitch. And then you crochet the edge up. So I'll just start undoing it. You should be able to see it undoing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of produces a flat seam at the side, but still it's a real pain in the ass to do. Like, I just don't like doing it. And some people knit circular tubes on the flatbed machines and have no problem with that, but I just, didn't like it and can't seem to get it to work. So I only got my sock machine last year, so it was 4 years of waiting. But while I was traveling around the world in the States, Australia, and the UK, and here, I was able to try all the different machines, as well as knowing what size machine I wanted, and because you get different cylinder sizes to make different tubes, and what kind of projects I'd want to make on it. So it was really important. So yeah, the machine I ended up with, these are just some plain, that's just a very plain sock you can make in about 40 minutes.
Wow.
This is a rib sock.
Nice.
Just so 45 minutes maybe for that one.
Nice.
So it's amazing to be able to do that on there. So I liken the sock machine to a car. So if you imagine a car from the 60s, which has no power steering, and so you can actually feel the road, you can feel what is happening. It needs oil changes, it needs, as you're knitting, you know that a screw is about to come undone, and so you put that back in again. So the older ones are very heavy. Mine's a very mass-produced one, and so it's kind of like your Toyota. Whereas the vintage ones from Europe, I turn the handle and they run so smoothly. They're like, your older Singer sewing machines, or, your Swiss clockwork type of things. Just fantastically beautiful to use. And they also have, that romance about them. I really like steam age technology. I love railways, and so that kind of thing really appeals to me. The newer machines are a lot lighter. They can do a lot more stitches, stitch types. They have row counters with them. Like, I use this row counter where you move the pegs along because I don't have a counter attached to my machine yet. I can get extra parts manufactured for my machine, and the needles are brand new, but it's, you need a lot of oil for the vintage ones. It's already broken in, which is fantastic. You don't have the breaking in period. What else? I get covered in grease. It's noisy. I don't know. I'll turn it. Noisier than a new one is more of a humming sound than that, crank, crank, crank sound. What else is the main difference? So the older ones I find work a little bit better. The newer ones, just little things like that I'm so used to with my machine don't happen with the newer ones. So yeah, but they're both really good. If you're looking at buying one, I suggest you try as many as you can, or try other types of machine knitting, because it's very different to hand knitting. I don't teach machine knitting because, what's the first thing I can do? I can make you sit down at the machine, make you knit 3 rows, and then make 50 of the stitches fall off, and then you spend half an hour putting them back on. That's the kind of lesson you need to learn. Very different to, give you 2 sticks and wool. But with all my machine knitting, I try and expand or, push it to its limits, both on the sock machine and on the flatbed machines. So I also use a Excel spreadsheet as well I've developed. So when I was given this beautiful, unique sock. You might have seen it in the shops. And so I can put it into the calculator and make like exactly the length of sock for that yarn, so that I don't run out. You can see I've got that much left.
Wow.
For a pair of perfectly matching socks. And that's really important for your, when you're hand spinning sock yarn. So this is this was just spun on a little 3D printed spindle here. So some sock yarn, and that's 100% Romney, so 100% natural wool. What else can I show you? Oh, yeah, that's 100% Corriedale socks done on the sock machine. These are my favorite. So I've worn these and machine washed them. That's 100% Romney hand spun, and they've been worn and washed 20 or 30 times, and they haven't shrunk. Still, like if I, tidied them up, would look nearly new. So it's amazing to be able to make those kind of things in about 40 minutes. He's not finished yet, but Skip the Bunny that you can make. So
cute!
That kind of
so you did that on the sock machine?
Yeah.
Cute!
Really cute. So a great thing about being involved with the Knitters Guilds Association is when you first talked about your undulant sock pattern, I was able to email a render and get the original article that you had written about it, and was able to convert it for sock knitting machines. So this is my...
On the sock machine. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Very cool. So you would do short rows on the sock machine.
Yeah. So basically making little short row heels or whatever on...
Right,
yeah. So
right.
You can do that kind of thing. And then Anna and Carlos released a Norwegian sock pattern. And normally if you're doing ferrule on the sock machine, you'd do this much. But yeah, I did.
Those are gorgeous.
Yeah, and it's about six hours of knitting.
Wow. So Margot asked a question. She says, how often do you knit by hand?
Well, I was knitting. A local film production company had asked me to do some period samples for them, and some of them I did on the sock machine. And as I was knitting them, I was like, it was tricky yarn, like, yeah, quite a specific requirement had to be done. I was like, I so wish I was knitting these by hand. So I'm always knitting by hand. I'll just show you another sample from the sock machine. So this is some pyramid stitch.
Mm-hmm.
This is don't think you can see very well. A square heel.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then your slip stitch heel flap with a kind of your Dutch heel
Uh-huh.
kind of thing. And that has gusset, like a real little gusset there.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a larger one. There's a larger gusset there.
So this is your heel sample. Showing
Yeah,
all
the
the
heel
different types
sample.
of heels. Yes, on the sock machine.
And then an argyle test as well.
Wow.
So, see,
Wow.
yeah. So I only learned that you could do the heel flaps and that type of sock only a few months ago. So that was really exciting. It's really expanded the boundaries of sock machine knitting. But yeah, so I'm hand knitting every day as well because I'm completing, masters as well as doing the technical editor's certification. And yeah, and then because you're doing so much professionally, you have to have some recreational knitting. So
Yes.
I'll show you some of those things as well. And I do machine knitting for local designers in production and that type of thing as well. So just some of the dresses that I'm knitting at the moment. So this is a linen and cotton, so that's plain knitting. So if I turn the sample upside down, and I'll show you this is how wide the lace is.
Wow.
The dresses that I'm making. So it's too big for the machine technology. So I have to do a lot of adaptations and stuff. But it ends up actually biasing, so you get this zigzag seam down the side of the dress, which is looking just fantastic. So that's my machine knitting that I have to do this afternoon. But I actually have, because I'm a pattern maker, so I can just draw the pattern shapes out, grade them by hand, and then just feed it straight into the machine. Just knit a swatch like this, measure it, and then punch the numbers in, and then I can just knit. Really fantastic. But I'll show you some of my current projects wherever I put them. Recreational projects. So I have some fibre I've dyed, yarn I've spun, ready. I do a lot of that.
Now, Francoise has a question for you.
Fire away.
She says, from what book is the pattern of the scarf with the reversible cables, please?
So I did the design to make it reversible. The single-sided, if you want a single-sided scarf, the book is called Literary Knits, and that has some of the base cable designs that I based it off. So I can put a link to that later on the video.
Okay.
So back to Urban Knit Collection, and one of the very first samples projects in the book is this Godfrey cardigan.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Yes.
So I wanted one for me, and I didn't want to knit it flat and hand spun yarn. So this is the up to the armpits. Oh. So yeah, there'll be a steek up the front for that, and I have 2 sleeves ready. So yeah, that's really fun knitting that one up. And then Charles Gandy came to New Zealand a year or 2 ago, and we were up we have a Seattle Space Needle. We have a sky tower, and from there you can see the university's clock tower. And the tower has, I don't know if you can see this very well, but
yeah, we can see that. Looks good.
Yeah. Oh,
very nice.
So this is his kiwi hat pattern, and it has these beautiful little bobbles on the top. So this is a Jaeger spun yarn. So those are my recreational hand knitting projects, and I just started a weaving project yesterday, and this is going to ruin the surprise, but my friends Elise and Christopher have just bought a puppy, and they've called it Rosie, and so I wanted to make them a woven dog leash based on roses. So this is you can see it very well.
Oh, how cute! That's beautiful.
Yeah, so it has the rose motif kind of going up the center, and the outside is kind of like a garden border, and then it has this repeat of kind of like footprints, like you're actually walking the dog. So that's a fun project in the work.
So what kind of puppy is it?
Airedale Terrier.
Oh.
And then there's this from Supergun in Europe. They have one of their sock ranges is called Magic Rose, so I bought her that as well. So there'll be some walk the dog socks. But I might get a hand knit those. So.
I love the opal sock yarns. I like the Hundertwasser ones, that are after the paintings. Yes, those are my favorites. There's so many though.
Yeah. It's annoying they have nylon in, but you win some, you lose some. But then they last for years and years and years, so it's better than throwing away a commercial sock, every 3 months.
Right. I've knit a lot of socks, and I wear them all the time, and I've only worn out a couple pairs, and usually it's because of something I did. For example, I wore one of my favorite pair of socks in Seattle, where I was going up and down hills a lot, and my toenails hit the end of my shoe when I was going downhill, and it, cut through my socks. And I don't have long toenails. It was just that my foot was sliding in my shoe, sliding forward as I was walking downhill. So it just put a lot of friction on the toe of the sock. But other than that, my socks last for a long time. My hand knit socks.
They do, yeah. If you knit them, a good tight gauge, really good yarn, they'll last a long time.
Yeah, tight twist yarn, tight gauge. Yes.
Yeah. And wool.
Yes, and wool. And not necessarily nylon. I have a lot of socks that are just wool, 100% wool, that are just fine. If it's a tight enough twist and you use small enough stitches and you keep your toenails trimmed.
Yeah.
So what else do you have to share? Do you have anything else there to share?
I've got heaps of things to share. Shall we go? Let's look at some sweaters.
Okay.
So you're doing the iTag drop shoulder. So actually I'll put these on so you can see them. So this is another machine knit, one of my favorite sweaters.
Nice.
And I didn't like the sleeves, so I just turned it inside, took the sewing machine to it and reshaped them.
Yeah.
And did the same with the neckline as well. But this is actually based off the tile floor in a washroom in my local cafe. So this is the inspiration for the sample.
So it's just a plain drop shoulder.
Yeah, plain drop shoulder.
No gussets.
No gusset in that one. So yeah, it's probably, I think, a 45% ratio from chest to arm drop. So
right. Nice.
And that's Ashford's Tekapo yarn as well, which is really nice. So this is don't know if you'll be able to see the detail very well, but after Beth's class here, and I taught a class in Gansey design in Scotland, as well as a Fair Isle class and a Tam design class. So I had to knit up a Gansey pretty quickly. So one I did in chunky yarn, and then the other one I did on the machine. You can see a bit of the pattern here. So this has about a 40% ratio to sleeve, and so it's, especially for me being slimmer, like it's a lot better fit, and it has the underarm gusset. And so
Yes.
this is like one of my favorite sweaters. Um,
It's beautiful. Fits you perfectly.
yeah, and so my family that live in Scotland, this kind of design is based from the area where they live in.
Hmm. So your family lives in Scotland.
I just have some cousins that live there.
Okay. You're from New Zealand.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm local. Um, oh, there's this design. So my first trip to Scotland, I helped Kyle develop this shawl, which is just two balls of single sock yarn, and it's all garter stitch, and it forms a nice, curved circular shape,
Hmm.
kind of like the dragons. So that's his Inverness shawl, I think he called it.
Hmm.
But shall we look through the naughty corner? I'll just go and get those samples.
So Deborah Cisneros has a question. She wants to know if the pattern for the skull shawl, if you're making a pattern for that, if it's available.
So the design, it covers 9 A3 pages, and so to digitize that to sell, it's I worked it out in a little bit of computer work, everything else in pencil. It's not like I don't have the physical time, and the expense of getting that digitized to do. So the if you want to make that type of shawl, get one of Crystal's books, and she sells kit sets, and that's a good place to start for your own designs. All the classes that I teach, I usually encourage, the same as you do, Suzanne, the students to design their own things, and to fit their own bodies rather than copying just everything.
Right.
But I get really bored because I look at yarns all day, I look at garments all day long, and then I go to a knitting group and everyone's knitting a copy of someone's, and just in different, boring yarns. Whereas if someone's made their own yarn and their own design, even if it's simple, it's exciting.
Yes. I have to tell you hold on just a second before you show that. When I do these tutorials and then I see the huge variety of garments that come out of them, out of people's minds, it is so heartwarming. It's just, it makes me feel really, really good. It's a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yeah, it's amazing when students, you'll teach someone to spin or you teach them a new knitting technique and they come back and they've taken it in a completely different direction. They've ignored your instructions, or, they can do that. It's their knitting.
Right.
And, they just do amazing things. And, it's just, they'll progress and then you'll progress and then they'll progress. And we're all like learning together. It's very different to having, a top-down, egotistical dictator telling you how to knit.
Right.
Quite a different climate.
Right.
And this is the merino yarn that I really love from Bellevue Wool Park in Australia. So they don't have a website on their on the ball band, but I'll hunt that out and let you know.
And what's the spin on that? It looks like it's like what, a cable spin? What's the spin on it?
It's no, it's just plain, I think.
Okay, I just couldn't see it well enough.
Yeah.
Just a regular
it's just
spin. Okay.
Really well made.
Okay.
Really well made yarn. So I was in China and was negotiating a cashmere yarn purchase for myself, and the volume went. It's a kind of a sport weight yarn, but the volume went from about it went from a kilo to 750 grams, and I didn't realize at the time that the yarn was a little bit more dense than we used to. So I'd knitted the back of a Gansey. So this is the back, and you can see...
Gorgeous. Very nice.
Really nice. It takes quite a few hours for the electronic machine to knit this. So you can see, I realized I was going to run out of yarn by the time I knit and weighed this one. So the blue Gansey only has plain knitting up to there and then the patterning up the top, because I was in a real hurry to finish it. And so then I was able to calculate kind of the yarns and stitches based on that. So I designed, after knitting another eye-tag yoke for a client, doing my own one just for fun using the same cashmere. And so this is how much I've done. But the same thing, I'm going to run out only by about 30 grams of yarn, so it's such a pain, and I'll have to unknit something else to make it, but I'll put it on. So this is based off the Gansey, the Scottish shoulder.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Is it rig and furrow design, but I've turned it into a yoke.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah. So the fit is really nice and it's cashmere, but there's going to be like this patch of navy blue or something at the end. Because this yarn's from Shanghai, I think they really like that red color, so it, sold out, completely quickly. Charles Gandy's book. He taught. His book has the tabby toes, so I've made, this is hand spun socks, and I've adapted it for toe up tabbies. But that needs re-knitting, but that's one of my dye jobs. Di Gilpin, I don't think you got to meet her in Scotland.
I didn't get to meet her, but I want to. I will one day.
Yeah, so she's amazing designer based there, and she has her own lamb's wool yarn range, which is just fantastic. So I designed a tam based on my family's clan tartan, and this is, you can see so it's worked in intarsia with Armenian knitting as well around.
Wow.
And so there's about 16 butterflies there, all a complete mess, and this is never going to be finished. So that's going to be undone and made into,
It's a needle holder right now.
Yeah, pretty much. But
it's very pretty.
Is fun, and
it could be a tea cozy.
No, like the yarn is so beautiful, knit plain. It's just unravel it and make something really nice. This is another Charles Gandy. So his I've forgotten what he calls the sock, but
Holy moly.
Holy molies, that's right. But there's all the back needs to be finished.
Charles, I love Charles. He thinks way outside the box.
Yeah. So in the big skull shawl, like there's a lot of Charles Gandy's. I've done, I think, 2 of his classes. A lot of his ideas, like simplifying and exaggerating, and a lot of things he teaches has gone into that shawl. A lot of the finishing techniques and stuff is in that shawl. So, yeah, really lucky to have been able to meet, Charles, Beth, Scott, Tignor, and Kyle Kinnick. They're all, part of Masters Hand Knitters program, either completing it or have finished it. And Yvonne Cartwright as well. And
Yvonne Cartwright. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yes.
She's amazing
she is
knitter.
Amazing. Yes. So I was going to ask you, do you ever come to the United States?
I've been lots. So every time I've been in California in February, I've missed out on Stitches West.
Well, you'll have to plan it differently.
I know, it's crazy. But so I've been through, I took a train around the Western Triangle, so through 14 states. So I did that in 2016. And I think I was in the USA 3 or 4 times that year, and then I've been a few times since. So I've lost count how many times. But yeah, Seattle, San Francisco are the main, San Jose, Portland are the main places I've been. Chicago, yeah.
Well, in Portland, I'm going to be teaching at the TKGA retreat next year in November. Yay!
I'm looking forward to. I probably won't go to the next one, but once it's established as an event,
Yes.
they might even do badge pinnings. So when I get my masters, I'll try and get a pin onto me. Will be great.
Exactly. I have my little pin. I have several of them because when I used to go to the knit and crochet shows and would, pin people, the students as they graduated, I'd always forget to take my own pin. So then I'd get a pin. So I have like 4 or 5 of them. But they come in handy. Let me tell you, I wear them. There's just a little pin, but it has a lot of meaning to it, and not very many people have them. So it's really kind of cool. Going to any of the TKGA stuff is really so awesome because you're there with people who are very, very, very serious about knitting.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not serious that they're grouchy, but they love discussing the fine, fine nuances, that make your knitting lovely. Handmade rather than homemade, as Arenda says.
I've met some of the people that have got the Masters machine knitters as well, but that program isn't currently running. But they are running correspondence, the correspondence courses in machine knitting, the TKGA's got up and running. So.
Excellent. So did we leave anything out? Do you have anything else? Oh, before you share anything more, on the skull shawl, the ram's horns.
Yeah.
When you started with a picture, right? And then you pixelated it, or did you use Stitch Fiddle, or what did you do to get it charted?
So it was a picture printed out full size, and then I drew out. I had a basic idea using math what the triangulation would be, and then for a lot of it, I would just get. Don't know if you can really see, like this kind of graph paper. Don't know if you can see the lines, and I'd just cut a square in that and just put it over the top and use that as guidance. And then the chart for the white poppy background is actually quite small. It's only about 24 stitches by that much. And so by the time you've knitted 70,000 stitches, that's in your head. So you can just keep knitting that motif.
Exactly. Have you ever seen Stitch Fiddle? Have you ever used that? Yeah.
For a lot. So I love to collaborate, and I did for the Wheel magazine with Kyle Kaneki. This was all done on Stitch Fiddle. So this is a Seattle or Auckland skyline. Done in hand spun yarns.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've done, in the Wheel magazine, my latest project was on the rigid heddle loom, so using just 2 heddle waffle weave tea towels, which is fantastic. And
was that cotton or linen?
The very first one, cotton. It's a stretchy cotton. It's been spun especially to have elasticity, so it feels like working with wool. It's called yoga yarn. Fantastic product. This is hand spun to look like denim, so it has a front and a lighter backside. So that was one of the first projects I did, and I really work with. I originally started weaving on the rigid heddle loom to produce fabric for my own tailoring, but really pushing the boundaries of that as well. So this is a twill woven on the rigid heddle loom with just 2 heddles, no pickup sticks.
Wow.
And it's a reversible as well.
That's amazing. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and this is, if you think this is beginner, and if you think advanced, this is medium difficulty. So, you can just imagine the possibilities of working with, just a basic loom. So it's really exciting. There might be a book in that, as well as 2 other books that are in the pipeline, but yeah, it's exciting.
You're so yeah. It's so fun to see all the things you're involved in.
Mm,
It's very
yeah,
joyful, very joyful, happy,
yeah,
happy.
yeah. And you only get to see mainly the personal stuff or stuff that's finished. You don't get to see the commercial designs that are secret or embargo. You don't get to see any of the film stuff. You don't get to see anything in production for exhibitions. Yeah. So there's so much behind the scenes. The groups I'm involved with, sometimes they do charity stuff that is, because of the nature of it, you won't hear about it. So there's all this kind of
A secret life. You
it's
have
a
a
secret
secret
life,
life.
and it can be lonely, and it can be difficult. One of the difficulties I find is being involved 100% of my time in the textiles industry is when someone's they spend 40 hours a week accounting and then they go to knit group, as opposed to
Right.
me knitting all day going to knit group. It's a very different dynamic. Yeah,
Exactly. So Beth Brown Renzel, she said, "I loved seeing all of your work, Kurt."
I love seeing all of Beth's work. Yeah,
Yeah. So
I look forward to
that's
when we can catch up again as well.
yes, yes. So we've been on here for an hour and 5 minutes. Can you imagine that? It's gone by so
I
quickly.
know. We can
Yes.
keep talking for another.
Yep. Yep. So I asked you previously. I said I was going to ask you. Do you have anything that's a failure that you would like to share?
Mm, no, I think those projects that need the redesign, are
Mm-hmm.
probably the biggest ones. I have another disaster in the bag. So I did a warp painting class, and so these are chained warps ready.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But one of the yarns, it's the same that I'm knitting the lace in, but this it just loves to tangle on itself when you're
Uh-huh.
rinsing it. So I have, I think, 5 warps there
Yeah.
um, that need untangling before warping. So
You need to, there are people who love to untangle yarn. You need to find one of those people.
yeah,
So let's
uh,
see. There's some other really nice comments over people are making. Margie says, "Congratulations, Kurt and Suzanne. You are so great. Unbelievable. Thank you both so much."
oh
And
wow, thank you.
Luana Hendricks says, "Thank you for sharing your art with us." And Sue Mills says, "Kurt, you're an inspiration." And Deborah
Oh,
Cisneros says, "Another awesome guest." This
yeah,
is just so darn fun to
I
do
know.
these and to let people share their work because oftentimes this is something you do at home and you've got all these things and we just got to see them all and it's so fun. I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap up. Unless did you have something else you wanted to share that we
I
skipped?
was just thinking we talked about I think it was last year during iTag Yoke about maybe making a video again about how to grade your design once you've created your design, because I do grading in my head
Uh-huh.
and using the I have it here, using the Craft Yarn Council size charts.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
We could work together to, so if people are interested, taking their design and, grading it up one size, grading it down one size, and then they might be able to publish it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Good idea.
Something fun to do.
We'll keep talking about that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Now it says MK says, when you design, can you turn your brain off, or is everything a source of inspiration?
You're getting inspiration all the time. I'll often have to leave the house, like go for a walk, and then, solutions will come to you or you'll see something else. But, if you see a design or a finished garment on the runway, that's probably 99% of the time completely different to what the designer's first intention was. And, all you're really seeing is like 8 mistakes walking down there, but, it looks fantastic. And yeah, a lot of the time, because you will design something, it will often be 6, 8, 12, 18 months ahead of when something's being published or commercially produced or something. And so by the time you actually see it again, you'll be like, what was I thinking? Or,
Exactly.
or
You've
that
progressed.
color's completely off season. Yeah.
Yeah. You've progressed past that point. I am not a designer. I am a technician. And as I told you before, I design the things that I do just to be vehicles for teaching. The things that I design have the elements that I want to teach. And even so that I'm not a designer, the things that I think about in my mind, there's no way I could possibly make them all in a million years. And by the time I actually get around to actually doing one, I've probably thought about 100 more, and so it's like, which one do you actually bring to fruition? It's not easy. There's just not enough time.
I love watching the European male lace makers do fantastic work, and I have I have the yarns, I have everything ready for lace making, but that's going to wait till after masters, I think.
Right.
But everything. So if I have spare time and I need a knit project, so I'm knitting Charles Gandy's Kiwi hat, and that uses Bavarian twisted stitches. And so I only started knitting that project because I was editing an article about Bavarian knitting stitches for the certificate program, and in level 3 of master's program you're doing swatches of Bavarian twisted stitches as well. So I'm getting all of the, I'm trying every single technique, and I'm making all the mistakes in this hat recreationally, and applying it to my learning. So that's often how I'll choose a project to work on.
Well, I'll tell you, you are amazing. I am totally impressed. And we'll have to do this again, like next year, in a year. We'll catch up with you. Yeah, we'll catch up with you again and see what you're doing. And a lot of things happen in a year.
I know.
But of course, we'll keep in touch between now and then. So let me put both of us back on here because I had just you on there. Let's see, select all. Okay, here we go. Whoops, I'm on the other side. I enjoyed this immensely. It's like going to an art show. It's just amazing quality of your work. So I'm going to say goodbye. And if people have questions, they can continue to ask them. And they will show up in the description below the video later on. So, so people, and if you didn't catch this live, you can watch the replay, and all the comments are still over on the side, so you'll still be able to see them. So keep in touch. We'll do this again. I think the next time I'm going to be on here is February 8th or before that. Well, yeah, let's see. Let me see. Let me look at my calendar.
Are you doing live streams for iTag Bottom Up?
Oh, good question. Thank you. I am on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. In fact, the first one's going to be this coming Wednesday. So let's see. Today, on February 1st, I'm going to have Alistair Postquin. So that's the next one on the Saturday or Sunday New Zealand time. This coming Wednesday, Bakersfield time, Pacific time, or Thursday New Zealand time, I will be having a live stream for the iTag for answering questions for that. So
great.
So stay on.
I love watching those.
I stay on, Kurt, because I want to talk to you for a minute after we get off of here. So we're going to say goodbye. We'll see you next time. And be sure to give us a thumbs up and share this with your friends. Bye-bye.